is my duty as a neighbor. Prophet once said, I'm worried that maybe the neighbors would begin to inherit the wealth of mine when I die, because God was so meticulous about orders for being good to the neighbor. So good citizenship is essential. And I believe Muslims can contribute towards that good citizenship by their nature. And that is their conscientiousness, their caring nature, their concerned nature, and their neighborliness. Good cities, a city like London, or any city, also requires opportunities for people to prosper. Not just materially, but also spiritually. I believe Muslim communities in this country have prospered and enabled others to prosper. Large number of shops, retail shops. You know, there is the cultural revolution going on in Britain. What has happened over the last 25, 30 or 50 years? In this country, what was the most popular food that was eaten 50 years ago? Fish and chips. Even that may be doubtful. If you go up north, it's not maybe fish and chips, it may be something else. Maybe roast lamb on a Sunday with some Yorkshire pudding, maybe bangers and mash. I don't know, all sorts of food that is very popular within the UK. But you know what? Even jellied eel has lost its flavour and charm. Cultural revolution over the last 100 years or 50 years has happened thanks to the Bangladeshis who came and took over most of these city centres and opened up restaurants and takeaways and created chicken tikka masala, which is eaten most frequently by British people today. So the contribution of this country, not just materially and not just in businesses, but also changing the habits and diets of people, has and must be recognized as a contribution. And good Muslims would do that. Not only would they create businesses, but they would also create jobs that would help other people. But spiritual prosperity is at the core of this whole discussion. And this is where I want to be controversial. Britain has created a great environment of opportunities where you can materially prosper. But in that process, Britain has lost sight of the spiritual prosperity of individual human being and the collective society at large. Spirituality today doesn't exist. As soon as you mention the word spirituality, you look down upon, they frown upon you, people say you're backward, you're religious, you are extremist potentially, and if nothing else, you could even be fundamentalist. Very sad. Spirituality is at the depth of our being. We as human beings must understand and recognize that we can't survive and be happy and find contentment in material. We need spirituality. Sad but true. Yesterday, a couple jumped from a cliff in Dover. Did you see? Is it Dover? Somewhere in that region when it happened. What happened to this couple? The story came out today because yesterday the report was it was given to the press. Today the story broke, and the story is the couple had lost their son, who had become paralyzed neck down after a car accident, who had died out of a pneumonia infection at the age of 5. The couple were devoted to loving and caring for their child. When the child died, even though he was disabled, they could not bear it anymore. So they drove more than 100 miles down south onto the area where people actually jump off and end their lives. And they ended their lives. And they carried with them the body of their dead son in a suitcase. This is what happens when you chase material. When you think happiness is material, and when the material happiness ends, life begins to crumble around, and therefore it's no longer worth living, you bring yourself to understand and conclude that I must end my life today. Spirituality alters that mindset. Material gain is not the end. It is not sufficient to keep you happy. And if it was, today, in this day and age of so much wealth and prosperity within our society, we would not be witnessing so much unhappiness, misery, and so many people taking their lives so early and so quickly. So Islam brings and has brought to the city spirituality. And that is in itself a sign of prosperity and more importantly, a better and more prosperous society to become. Well, this country, not long ago, brothers and sisters, had only a few mosques, handful of them. First mosque, controversial in terms of which one it is, either Woking or Liverpool. I believe it's Liverpool, some believe it's Woking. It doesn't matter. Maybe both of them. It was done in 1891, around that time. First mosque, 1891. 1991. By 1991, Muslims had built in this country well over 1,000 mosques. By 2009, barely over 100 years have passed, we have nearly 2,000 mosques across this country. Spirituality is here to stay, it's not going anywhere, in a different shape and a form. Many people find this threatening and very unimaginable. Well, you know what? Islam is nothing new in its form, in its message, and the core values it proposes. It encompasses and came to propose, furthering the messages of Moses and Jesus and the prophets who came before. It doesn't give anything substantially new. It only confirms the messages that came before, completes that very process of the prophet's messages, and gives to the society a wholesome approach to spirituality rather than the partial one. So Islam did, and Muslims have brought spirituality to this country, and I think this is a great contribution of Muslims in this country. When churches were becoming emptier by the day, most of them were getting sold to private developers as flats and luxury houses, or to becoming mosques and other centers of religion and worship. In fact, you'll be happy to know a church not long ago was renovated and rescued from demolition by a Muslim who donated £200,000 up north and said, "Don't worry, Christian communities, you're my brothers. I believe that you should have the right to access your church. I oppose the private developers from bulldozing this church and building luxury flats here. Here, take £200,000 from my business and redevelop your church," and that church is still running. I think that's a great contribution Muslims make, and we will want to continue making such stride in this country, supporting our fellow human being, no matter what religion they have, in furthering their own spiritual need. We can add value to it, and that is Islam and our values, and they are prepared to share them. Number 3, in any prosperous, happy city, Islam in the city, safety and security is essential, my brothers and sisters. Law and order, of course. But not only law and order. Law and order must be coupled with punishment that follows, that are corrective as well as a deterrent. Today, the society at large sees number of offences happening on a daily basis, disproportionate nature of sentences being given. A person who was driving while under the influence of alcohol, veered off the road, hit the lamppost, and killed a child, gets 2-year sentence. And a person who has littered the street gets a 6 months suspended sentence. What kind of a ridiculous legal framework is this? What kind of a ridiculous sentencing is this? We need to understand law and order here is to protect us and preserve the sanctity and the civilized nature of a society. Islam is also, in its ambition, the same. Our punishment must be proportionate and reflective as a deterrent. But more importantly, and I have something honest and very controversial to say to the Muslims here. So non-Muslim friends, you may want to ignore what I'm saying. But for Muslim friends, please don't misunderstand me. We have begun, unfortunately, creating an environment either by design or by default, by the behavior of some or majority, a fear in the hearts and minds of a large number of people in this country who don't feel secure when they see you and I, and when they hear you and I as Muslims lurking around, roaming around, or occupying the same space as they are. Walking to an underground station, wearing a long dress with a hat or a turban, and you see how quickly the seats next to you become empty. It doesn't take that long. It's not because they hate, or non-Muslims hate Muslims. No, I think Muslims have done